Looks like we have a few participants. Welcome, everybody. It is 1 minute past 6. This is the special listening session of the Rutland Town Select Board. We're here on June 29th at 6 p.m. And we're here to talk and to listen to your ideas about how to use the American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds, which are coming our way from the federal government. Actually, they are with the state, so the state's going to be distributing them to the town. We have Select Board Member Don Chaffee. I'm Mary Ashcroft. We have, let's see, Barbara Pulling, our Planning Commission Chair. Bill Sweet is there. I think he might he's helping us set up. Jim Schultz, our delinquent tax collector. Keith Whitcomb from the Rutland Herald here in the room. We have Mike Rowe, rec director here in the room, and you're going to have to help me with your name. Edwina Hoskin, who is Austin, thank you, who is one of our Rutland Town seniors and has been a faithful member of our group when we get together. So thanks for coming. Is there anyone else that I haven't recognized that will be participating? Oh, we got a couple of other folks coming in. Jim, you have your hand up. Oh, no. No. Okay, I think you go straight across the hallway. Okay, so we're going to get started. If you'll join me, please, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, folks, thank you. I didn't realize, but the listers are hearing grievances this evening, so we may have a different group of people wandering in and out. So we've had a few ideas. Let me give you a little brief overview. First of all, we know the amount of money we're going to be getting, which is $430,000. It will be coming to us in 2 installments of equal size, I believe. One will be coming within a month or so, but I've been saying that now for about 2 or 3 months, so I don't know when it's going to get here. And the other half will be distributed next year about this time. There is also we're not going to be talking about this much tonight, but there is the possibility of another upwards of $750,000 because there is another piece of ARPA that is targeted to county governments in Vermont. Because we're town-based, not county-based, that money may be coming to us. We don't know. We have the National League of Cities and our own League of Cities and Towns working with our congressional delegation in Washington to make sure the money comes through appropriately. But what we're talking about tonight is $430,000 in 2 installments. We do have some time to spend it, unlike some of the federal money that came through last year. We have until December 31st of 2024 to find a use and appropriate the funds. And then we have 2 years after that to actually finish spending the funds. So if we have projects, we do have some time to take care of the payments and actually do some decent planning, which is why I'm glad you're all joining us today. Okay, so I think what we'll do is just kind of open up to folks who have some ideas and would like to share those ideas with us. And let's see, Don, you're unmuted, so would you like to say something?
No, I viewed these 2 meetings that you scheduled, Mary, for members of the public, general members, our townspeople to weigh in. I think as a board member, I have ample opportunity at other times to do that. So I simply want to listen to what my fellow citizens have to say about it.
Okay, thanks, Don. I did want to remind folks that these funds, there are some restrictions on what we can use them for, keeping in mind it's rescue money to help us get back on our feet following the COVID pandemic. So there's 5 categories. One is to support public health expenditures, mitigation efforts that we may have taken, medical expenses, behavioral health care, and some public health and safety staff that goes with it. To address the negative economic impacts caused by this emergency that we've been through, including economic harms to workers, to households, to small businesses, to industries, and to the public sector. So there are, possibility for grants or loans, low interest loans to help folks get back on their feet. To replace lost public sector revenue. There is actually a formula that we can use to determine whether we have lost money. Now, I know we ended the year with a surplus, or we will be ending the year with a surplus, but that doesn't mean that our revenues came in as projected. So we're going to have to do some calculations to see whether we might be able to use some money for that purpose. The 4th category is to provide premium pay for essential workers because they have been at higher risks. And this includes basically, of course, the healthcare workers, but also those people in municipal government who have been out there, our fire and police departments, and on from there. And of course, our town clerks in here. And then the last category is to invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Including some things like wastewater and stormwater improvements. And I know that we've had plans in place to do stormwater runoff improvements. So that may be a category we can use. So we have to stay within the categories, but we have broad flexibility and we can be pretty creative. So that's kind of what I'm hoping. All right. Edwina, you had a suggestion for us.
Well, my main concern was that was meeting at Cheney Hill, and that got closed. So then we float around to different places, trying to meet, and sometimes it works and sometimes it does not. And I just felt I come here to vote. We got that room downstairs, and I understand there's bigger rooms in there, so we could get a kitchen, possibly bathrooms, and use some of that area. So maybe we could have our monthly meetings here instead of gallivanting all over the city, which I personally do not enjoy because I have trouble seeing now that I'm getting up there. And a lot of the other people are saying the same type of thing. They can't keep going up this way and that way.
Okay.
So that was one of our concerns, is having a steady place to have the meetings.
Okay. Did folks hear that on the call? Okay. All right. Edwina Austin is a member of our seniors group. She suggests that we use some of the ARPA money to do renovations for the downstairs meeting room so that the seniors in town will have a place to meet on a regular basis. There's also a kitchen down there that sorely needs renovation. And Edwina's point is if we have one place, we don't have to then send seniors all over at various meeting places around the city and around in the town. Mendon was the last one. So thank you for that suggestion. We'll see what we can do.
Mary, could I add something here?
Sure.
Because that's a fantastic suggestion. And I wanted to add some policy things, as you mentioned, Mary, and let the citizens of the town at this meeting and at the future meeting that we have, or any other time, in the light of what you said of being creative, I really think that we should enter into all of these discussions with the idea that the powers that be that are providing these funds to us, the federal government and through the state, are going to be much more proactive and liberal in their interpretation of the rules than restrictive. I'm going into it with that assumption, and I hope everybody else does, that we can stretch this rubber band about as far as you want to stretch it. And I would encourage people to look for ways to make justifications for this. And in light of what Edwina said, I think it would make entirely great sense to have a room as large as that for the seniors for this very reason. We don't have a ton of seniors attending, but we have a good number, but that number can be spread out in the event of COVID or any other viral potential infection, including flu, so that there could be separation in that room to allow for meetings with proper social distancing. And I think that would very easily justify using those funds in that way.
Okay. Right. Yes, ma'am.
Add also that I have been a nurse for 57 years. And that's what I did before. I just retired after getting all the flu shots and all the COVID shots. So I'm very in touch with, what would have to happen if there was another infection.
Right. If you didn't hear that, folks, Edwina makes the point that she, 57 years, had a career as a nurse for 57 years. So she knows lots of the mitigation measures that we're just learning now. She's known and practiced them for quite a number of years. Okay. Let's see. Barbara, noise pulling. Do you have anything to share with us?
Don't have anything yet from the Planning Commission. But I guess, looking at the list, the list that they say initially qualifies for this funding. I'm wondering if we need any, we need to expand any water and sewer to certain parts of the town, maybe the southern part of the town, to promote more development. I don't know, Ranbury Road area, or maybe on the other side of Route 7.
Okay.
I don't know how far this money is going to go, but.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm scribbling notes, but we're also recording this so Bill can do up minutes for us too. Okay, and I think the Planning Commission will probably be weighing in by the July 20th meeting. So we'll have more ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's the plan.
All righty. Jim Schultz, you have joined the call. Do you have some ideas for us?
Hello, takes a second to unmute some days.
Yeah.
We're primarily, Ann and I, here just listening in to see what people have for ideas. I don't have anything in particular, but I am hoping, like a lot of other folks, that we can come up with some creative ideas that spend the money well and improve life for all the citizens of the town.
Okay. So Jim's our delinquent tax collector and probably has seen some folks who have been hit by the pandemic, especially hard. But at the same time, our tax revenues seem to be fairly constant. So we have seen a couple of abatement requests that we've dealt with as the Board of Civil Authority. It appears that certainly the lost revenue might be something we could maybe replace the money that we abated, possibly doing something to assist other folks who are attempting to pay their taxes but have lost employment. So are you working with a number of folks, Jim, on back tax payments and trying to help them catch up?
There are a number of folks who have been working on it to try and get their past due bills taken care of. As you said, I've managed to get a few of them to come to the Board of Civil Authority. I have been mentioning as I contact folks of the availability of those funds being possibly put to use for the folks who are having an issue that's caused by COVID. I just sent out my notices for this year last week. And so I'm expecting to hear a whole lot more through the end of this week from folks. And those that I haven't contacted yet, and we'll definitely work with and keep track of those that may have an issue from COVID, being unemployed or other effects, and make sure that they understand they can go to the Board of Civil Authority and plead a case for some sort of abatement, and that for the town that may be covered by these funds.
Okay. And it's probably a little too early to know how many folks that might be.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
A few people have mentioned it, but they were in positions where the amount they owed was primarily, I'm not going to say insignificant, but not something that would cripple you to have to pay, but were upset because of COVID and the fact that they weren't able to go in and pay what they do, and those kinds of things. So I have been handling a fair number of folks who are upset about COVID causing them issues getting their payments in, those kinds of things.
Okay. All right. We'll watch for more from you, Jim. Thank you.
Barbara, have a question. Is that for me?
Barbara has her hand up. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it wasn't a question, Jim. I was just going to continue on where you left off. I was wondering if we might, for other folks that have been negatively affected, whether we should do some sort of a survey, whether this is small businesses or individuals, just to get an idea of what the problem is out there. Then I was also wondering if the school needs to be folded into any of this, public health wise, or if they need, maybe there's a broadband infrastructure connection there. I don't know. It would be good to have them at this meeting.
Well, I visited with the school board yesterday. They had a meeting yesterday, and I wanted to spread the word to them and through them to people who were watching their meetings. The school systems are getting their own pot of money, and a considerable amount of money, and that's going to be distributed through the supervisory union. So I won't rule out the possibility of joint things like broadband with the schools, but they are also getting some funding themselves. And I have had a couple of conversations with Lynette Gallipo, the chair of the school board. But speaking of broadband, that reminds me, Mike Rowe is here and has some ideas for the recreation facilities up at Northwood. So I'm going to ask him to come up, in the usual seat for, yeah.
I'm jealous. You can come back up. I don't have my thought is, we've been trying for years. We have quite a few town property and town activities that go on up at Northwood Park. And right now we're currently on DSL, which is a phone line, which is that's very, very old and antiquated. So we've always talked about bringing cable in, but it was always an expense. So bringing broadband into the park for security purposes, for users to use the internet when they're at our facilities down in the park. This seems like a perfect match for with the money that's available and not having to bond money out or find money to do a project like that. So this seems right up the alley of what we've been trying to do before. As you know, we did the telephone pole thing. We've tried a bunch of different things, but cable has always been something we wish we had, just to make life a lot easier on a lot of folks that operate out of the park.
Okay,
So my suggestion would be to somehow get broadband or cable up
Hey,
into the
Esther.
park.
okay.
That's my suggestion.
And create what, hotspots here and
Yeah,
there?
we can create hotspots here and there. The park gets a ton of usage and people are always asking, what's your internet? And I'm like, well, if you get on it, then I can't get on it kind of deal. There's not a lot. We don't give it out because it can't handle it. And, we have multiple buildings up there with multiple features. So it would be nice to be able to connect them all and be able to see them when we need to see them.
Okay, and the highway department's up there full-time now.
The
so-
highway's up there full time, transfer station's up there, the building in the back, the rec building in the back with all the activity that goes on all the time. It just might be worth investing some of that money
Okay,
in that part of the park.
good,
That's all I got.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. What about Dewey? Anything over there?
Now they mentioned we could do that too.
Okay.
That would be fairly easy because the cable is right at the pole and the pole is right by, that should be almost a simpler one because it's right in the neighborhood. So it's not like they have to come into something. They just have to go from the pole to the building. So yeah, thank you for that. Yes, Dewey would also
Okay,
benefit from a cable hookup for Wi-Fi and what have you. So thank you for that. And
sure.
it's just in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Mary, while we're at it, Mike, we might as well, Barbara, put a request in to put it at the Pocket Park as well, both for safety and security and whatever, because, well, for obvious safety features, if we're going to have kayakers or canoers entering at that point.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. And it might help
We-
with, if we do any online, kind of displays and connections there.
Yeah, maybe you have an online camera at the Pocket Park that people can tune into to see what's going on and what it's like there. And they might want
Right.
to check rapids or they want to look at the water level or just, they want to see what's going on. So adding some of those projects together might get you an even more of a discount when you're thinking about putting in cable or whatever broadband. So you might get a little bit better deal because you're doing more than one activity.
okay.
So that's a great part. That's a good point, Don, is that Pocket Park.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Any other little hot spots around that the town has would be good as well.
So I should know this, but if somebody came and sat in our parking lot here at the town office, can you get Wi-Fi? Is there free Wi-Fi here?
Well, when you walk in the building, they give you the Wi-Fi code. I don't know how
Well,
far
that's- yeah.
outside. Bill would be able to tell you how far it extends beyond the building. Because they can limit its range.
And
Like
same-
at school, when we were at school this past year, you could go outside and you get Wi-Fi for about 10 feet. And then they put repeaters outside because we were doing outside classrooms. So then I could get Wi-Fi while I was in the woods
Okay,
because they pushed it out. So they can regulate how far it goes so that you don't have people that you don't want, coming in and jumping off per se on your Wi-Fi. So they can extend it beyond the building. So that's a
think-
great question.
Bill Sweet, you're about to say something?
We do have public Wi-Fi at the office for people that are inside. We traditionally haven't made it openly available. I can talk with our IT vendor, and we could set up a way that we could do that if that's what we would like to do. That is possible.
Okay. So more for discussion then. Good.
Mike, I got a question for you, Mike.
Sure.
What about security and or visibility of our more extensive walking trails leading from the school to Northwood and so forth? Is that something that we should investigate as well?
I don't know if you should investigate, but if it's something that's available, you might want to think about it if it's included in a package. I'm a firm, I grew up, I'm 55, so I grew up walking through the woods and making it a-okay. And if you have a decent path and everything, I think we sometimes get a little too overprotective. I don't want to say that in a negative way. But to go back to your point is, yeah, that is obviously that is a potential as well when we're seeking out how we're going to go from school, because we have a couple of balls still up in the air trying to figure out a good path from the school to get to Shazana. So that's still in conversation. So that's a great point, Don. Yeah. I mean, maybe there is.
Yeah, I understand your concerns on the other side too, and I agree with you. I was thinking in terms of safety and security. Like on the interstate highways, there's certain points where you can make an emergency 311 or whatever 911 call, and I was thinking that if we had some of that at least at some specific points along those trails, in case anyone had a medical difficulty or needed some assistance or whatever on those trails, that there would be some spots available where they could get that in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, that's a
And
great
I
idea. It doesn't hurt to
So-
look at it to see. And I think that's a good
Yeah.
point. I mean, like you say, you want to make the rubber band, kind of stretch a little bit. And if you're talking broadband, which is one of the key points on that, and if we're going in there, then that's something that can be investigated, figured out. Would it work? Wouldn't it work? So it doesn't hurt to, explore that. Because there are, like I said, there are a lot of people that walk those trails. And if, God forbid, somebody would get hurt and they didn't have their cell phone, it's not like they can, they could call for help, but it's dense. So having a spot or two in there where they could get to make a rescue call is probably a very smart thing.
Okay.
Thanks. We've had two folks join us here in the room, Dan and Esther Sweat. You have any ideas for how we should spend our money?
Well, just that we serve as many positions as possible with the money. Just be as comprehensive as we can. We didn't know if there were still paving projects that needed to be done. We didn't know if there was a project that was going to increase taxes. I'm sure they're not going to say you could use money to reduce the tax.
Right, you're right, they won't.
But if you were planning a project that was going to increase taxes, could you, supplant one with the other? Say we're gonna do this project with this money that would be an allowed project, so it might not increase taxes. If that was, I don't know what you had in mind, but
Well, we're trying to find out. You're correct. I mean, we can't use money to reimburse ourselves for past projects,
right.
but we can replace lost revenues. And we can do some things that we know we're going to have to eventually, like stormwater. Water sewer is mostly the smaller fire districts, but Barbara Pulling suggested maybe looking at extending water sewer coverage in other parts of town. And that's why we were talking about broadband is something that maybe more people would benefit from. So keep those thoughts coming. Yes.
Was on street lighting and maybe some solar, which wouldn't add to the electrical expense for the town. But it's so dark around this town. People come up to visit us. It's really dark up here, and I'm just wondering if there could be more street lighting, especially where there are entrances like onto the East Road. I travel, of course, a lot, but I know there's one coming out of Estates, Shazana, or whatever it is. But we don't have one, and there are many other places that we do not have good lighting. And if we were to put up some solar, then, and I'm sure there are lots of other places that are well lit around town. There's, you know,
Okay. I'm flipping through my handy little, it was a PowerPoint presentation that the League of Cities and Towns did. I think Don has gone through this too. And it has some things, and I think there was some mention of green projects, and it's possible something like solar lighting at key intersections would fit that. So putting on the very creative thinking hat, we'll take a look at that too. There are some things that we cannot use the money for. So I thought I'd run through those. We can't use our ARPA money to match any other federal grant. We can't use it for pensions. We can't use it for infrastructure, which is not directly addressed in ARPA. So some of it, like paving, for example, I think that would be a hard stretch because ARPA talks about water, sewer, broadband, but it doesn't mention paving. So I think that would be more difficult. We can't use it for rainy day funds, for financial reserves, or to pay off outstanding debt. My first thought was, oh, good, we can finish paying off the Center Rutland Fire Station, but we can't use the funds for that.
but what about the one where it's talked about
Well, I mean, it's infrastructure that doesn't quite meet. On the other hand, it's public safety, and it has features that we may be able to cover with these ARPA funds. Oh, Keith.
Would you be allowed to use it for, say, a small business involving
Keith Whitcomb's question is about whether we could set up a small business, or for that matter, a homeowner revolving loan fund. And there is indication that loan funds would be allowed, depending upon what the money was used for, but recovery, lost profits, reinvestment, and I think those things are all possible. I was thinking of a micro grant or a small grant to folks who are lost their jobs and are looking for small funds to start up a new kind of business or self-employment. Yeah.
Or Mary, even more appropriately, if we get into a situation again where employers are forced to lay people off or have them work from home in a remote situation, potentially we could set up some kind of a revolving fund that pays for childcare so that those people are able to continue to function in gainful employment. I think that's really
I did have a request from I think it was a school board member last night. What about childcare? So I think you're right on, Don. That is something that we should look into. We don't have enough, as Esther knows, discussions at our church. We don't have enough childcare in the area. So, okay, just a request from Jim Schultz that people need to speak up more if you're going to be commenting from the back, so everybody can hear. All right, Barbara Noyes Pulling has her hand up.
I was wondering, I'm thinking of those poor folks in the Pacific Northwest, but also COVID related. Should we have like a shelter area for the town, whether it be for the homeless? Maybe, there was that overflow facility the hospital set up at the mall. So maybe there's a better way to monitor, the housing situation and the problems we ran into. If we had a center like that, and maybe it could also serve as a cooling center or a storm center. The power was off for people. I mean, I know us Vermonters, want to take care of ourselves, but just thinking of the population as a whole, there might be a need for something like that. And I sure would like to avoid what we had before with the
I know
hotels.
we do have an emergency management plan, and we do have a designated site at the school, which is why the town, rather than the school, pays for the generator up there and the generator maintenance. And I think the Mission, it's in Rutland City, but I think the Mission is also a designated shelter place under our emergency management plan. But that's not to say we couldn't increase the capacity or add other sites. So I've scribbled that down. Thank you, Barbara.
I have a suggestion that goes along kind of tangential to what Barbara just said. It just reminded me of it. I think, Mary, what we have to task our police force or our chief, fire chief and our police chief to document every single related cost, time-wise, equipment-wise, and so forth, related to the housing situation in the southern part of town that was precipitated basically by COVID and the state's placement of homeless people in the community. And because I think that, those are easily justifiable budget replacement costs due to COVID. And before it's forgotten or becomes old news, we should get a handle on what those costs are, since those people are going to be released pretty quickly, I think.
You raise a good point, Don. We have submitted one bill for our emergency response down there for the police, but we haven't updated that bill. So if you could remind, and that's a separate program anyway, but if we shouldn't get paid from the state resource that we were told to apply to, if you could remind us at the next select board meeting that we should be asking the police chief and fire chief to see what additional costs have happened since we sent in the first bill. That would be useful.
Will do.
Thank you. Okay. We've been at it now for about 40 minutes. I think I've done the round robin to see if anyone else is there. Is there anyone who hasn't joined in, or someone who might have had a second thought or a third thought or a fourth? Esther.
Well, it's pretty obvious that we haven't had our first meeting yet, even, Mary, but I think that'll probably come up there. But I'd like the townspeople to think about it too, of how potentially some or any of this money could be used on a capital project that we're facing to try to upgrade our fire protection system and our police department.
Yeah.
At McKinley.
At McKinley, yeah. We haven't had we haven't resumed our meetings. There were several earlier meetings before you were on the board and before I was involved in it. So we are setting up more. So it would be very good to task the folks who are doing the planning there and the committee, which will be the select board as a whole, to think about how we can use pieces of ARPA for that. Esther has a comment.
I was just going to inquire if you could make capital purchases with this money. For example, the machine that they use to trim all the roadsides with, I know we share that, I think, with Clarendon. I don't know if that's a realistic kind of thing, but it sure looks nice after it's been done. And there's a lot to do, and I mean, it's a safety thing as far as cats and dogs and children, because the grass was very tall right next to the road. So I don't know, I'm just didn't know about capital expense for equipment.
I think it's possible if it fits one of the categories that the feds told us it has to fit. So yeah, but it's going on the list, By the way, I think we do have another listening session July 20th. And as I said, we have more time to spend this money than we had some of the earlier emergency funds. So what I think we're going to be doing is next steps. We'll kind of be distilling the ideas from this meeting. We'll be doing some research to see whether the idea fits within ARPA or whether with some creative tweaking it might fit. We're going to have to check in with the select board to see what their priorities are for any of the suggestions made. And I think we should also be monitoring what other towns are doing and and the League of Cities and Towns, because they've been a very good resource. If you haven't looked on their website, they're probably the best conveyor of information right now on what we can use these funds for. So okay. Anybody else, any final comments or other ideas? The sweats are saying no. Keith, I think, is a no. Barbara's a no. Jim Schultz, anything else? Nope.
Nothing more from this corner of the world.
Okay. Bill, I think he muted himself. Bill usually has ideas.
We've covered some of the topics, and there is some broadband infrastructure work that I've already reached out to some vendors to see if some of the things we want to do are possible. So been looking into some things already, but so far so good.
Okay. And Don?
No, I think we've covered everything. We do want to include, obviously, we've talked about this before, but I just wanted the other members of the public to know that we are including those purifiers. They're air purifiers that actually they filter and screen the air as well as change it, and they do filter out virus particles. And we're going to include, I think our intent is to include those under the ARPA funds when we get them. And that will cover the entire town hall. So that ought to be that's a proactive COVID prevention measure.
Okay. All right. Okay. If there is nothing else, and it doesn't look like anyone's got a hand raised, I'll thank you all for participating. Don't forget our upcoming meeting on July 20th, but don't wait for then. Just if you see a select board member or Bill at the town office, pass your ideas along and we'll start working on them. So thank you all very much. Have a good evening.